community. Community. We all seek community. Now, a person of my age can call up an old TV show, and in calling up an old TV show, he assumes that everyone else, regardless of their age, can recall the show. I am remembering the TV show Cheers. Now, if you haven't seen Cheers, if you say, I'm not that old, Houston, perhaps at least you've heard of it. The bar at Cheers in Boston became the fictitious place to which losers came for fellowship and got drunk. But here's the tagline of the show that went on for a number of years. At Cheers, everyone knows your name. But even at Cheers, as was evident in the final episode, to know someone's name is not necessarily to know everything that needs to be known. Surely there is more to the concept of community than a place of escape, such as a bar, a room for licking our wounds, for sharing sadness, for a collection of superficial friendships. A true community is where others know who I am, not merely the name that I respond to. Thursday afternoon, after I left work, I went home to pick up sticks in my yard. And as I was picking up sticks, I was working towards the back of my yard. And right at the back of my yard, I have planted arborvitaes. And on the other side of the arborvitaes is where I throw leaves and stuff. And on the other side of the leaves and stuffs is a fence. And on the other side of the fence is a early childhood learning center with little 3- and 4-year-olds chugging around back there in the afternoon. So I'm throwing some stuff back there. I see those little kids, they're hollering. They have one thing that's a real irritant, is they have this thing that they have built, and they've hung pots and pans on it and number 2 wash tubs, and about 4:30 every afternoon they beat on them, you know. And as the winter ends and the spring comes, they beat every afternoon about 4:30. So I'm back there, not paying. I can hear them, all the racket. When we moved there, they weren't there. They started this. I don't know if I'd have bought that house if those little kids were back there. I mean, I love little kids. I have 4 grandkids. I know about kids. I had 4 kids. Can't tell me anything. Well, you can tell me a lot. But as I'm back there working, this one little kid, I hear him hollering, "Come here, you all, come here, you all, come here, you all, come here, come here, come here." And all these kids come rushing over to this fence. I'm only about 3 feet from the fence. And this little boy says, "There's an old man." And he says it 2 or 3 more times. Well, the teacher comes rushing over to the fence to see the old man, I guess, you know, because she isn't very old either. And she's over there saying, "Oh, we got to apologize. We got to apologize." And I told them, "Listen, you little kids, my name's Houston. It's not old man. But I thank you for making my day." And they did. An authentic community, and that's what was being created there in just that moment. is that a group of people without any pretense whatsoever that a little boy signaled community. The editorials and the critiques on our lives may be negative, but in true community, we are never outsiders. We are critiqued in the concept of loving acceptance. And that's what I felt in that moment. So here is Jesus asking his disciples, who do the people say that the Son of Man is? And that's the kind of question that you're asked in school, a question about other people. It's an academic question. It's not a personal question. It may be demanding, and you may have to listen hard, and you may have to do a lot of looking around, and you may have to do some research to pass the test to find out what others are saying, but it's not a threatening question. It's not threatening. So we shouldn't be surprised to read that all of the disciples answered. Some say John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah, and others say one of the prophets. But then we read, and you, no doubt Jesus pointing a finger, who do you say that I am? And this time only one person answers. An academic question may be demanding, but a personal question is dangerous. For a personal answer commits the person that is giving the answer. And when Peter says, you are the Messiah, clearly he is committing himself to being a disciple of the Son of God. Jesus insists that Peter's revelation comes from God. Now, as the 10 new members, they said as much a few moments ago, and we can assume up to this point that you and Peter are pretty close in identifying Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God. You are identifying yourselves as Christians, maybe not for the first time, but you're doing it again, a reaffirmation of faith. Elizabeth O'Connor, who is one of the founders of a very unique church in Washington, D.C., called the Church of the Savior. Elizabeth O'Connor has stated that the purpose of the church, and I love her explanation, very, very simple, to build life together, to create liberating communities of caring. The church is therefore a unique form of community. And to be perfectly honest, one of the frustrating aspects is to preach to people, frustrating because you're preaching to people the concept of the community of Christ. And sometimes you feel like people can't hear, they don't want to hear, or they refuse to hear. People who see themselves, let's be honest, I hope there are none of you in this category, but who see themselves as consumers. Consumers for Christ. Allow me to give you an illustration of a consumer mindset. This illustration comes by way of my mother. She died in Texas in the year 2006. She was a member of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Arlington, Texas. When she had to give up her car, she became very dependent on my brother Joe for many things. And one was going to church on Sunday. Now here comes the problem. Joe and his family and 4 children were Methodist. And they were active and good Methodist. And he offered to pick her up and she could go with them on Sunday to the church, the Methodist church. Now at this time, because I knew that my mother was in failing health, I called her once a week. And after she had to start going to the Methodist church, every time I would call her, she would constantly complain about this Methodist church. She had been raised first as a Baptist, and then she had joined the Christian church. And what she loved about the Christian church was every Sunday you get communion. And she loved that. She thought that was just priceless. She thought that was wonderful. And I agree with her. So this Methodist church that she was going to with my brother has communion only once a month. Once a month. So if y'all think I look frustrated on the second, third, fourth, and fifth Sundays, it's because you don't have any communion. But I can live with it. I can live with it. But she would complain about this on the telephone again and again. Now, I'm serving a church in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. Been there for 28 years. We serve communion to shut-ins if they requested it every Sunday. If you called on Friday and asked for communion, one of our elders would take communion to your house. So one of our elders, who was getting frustrated with having to make the little communion kit up and get the little bread and get the little cups and get the little juice and all that stuff, constantly talked about that at elders' meetings. Well, he came up with this wonderful thing that he found in a catalog. He found a little communion cup that had a little lid on it. Little paper lid, and you could pull the little lid off, and under that paper lid was a little piece of bread, a little wafer. And you could offer it to a shut-in. They could eat the bread. Then you pulled off the next little top, and guess what there was? Grape juice, and you could drink it. Well, he bought us a ton of these things. We must have had, I don't know how many boxes of these. Well, guess what? The shut-ins didn't like them. They didn't like that. They want you to go to trouble, you know. So we had those sitting around. So I got this idea, and I said to my mother, I said, let me tell you this story. So I told her about this communion. I said, I'm going to send you a whole bunch of these communions. You're sitting in that Methodist church. That choir is singing. Oh, they're singing so pretty. You just reach in your purse and you take out one of those. You take that off. You eat that bread. Take it off. Drink it up. I thought, that's how smart I am. She said, that's great. I said, that's why I went to Vanderbilt. To be smart, you know. So I called her on the phone several times, and she thought that was wonderful. She liked that idea. So one Sunday night, my brother calls me on the phone. He says, I really want to thank you. I want to thank you for getting all that communion to Mother. Guess what she did this morning? She brought her purse full of communion. And as the choir sang, she got up and she passed out communion to everyone around us. Now you see, I facilitated consumerism in the church, is what I did. We hope that you find a commitment in this church, new members. And while the worship service is, I hope, believe it, to be central to the faith, there is more to this church than just the worship service on Sunday morning. There is the ministry of music that is rich and important, and whether it comes by way of children or youth or adults, it recognizes the fact that sacrifice has been made for this to happen, for music to happen. These little children, under Barb's direction, they didn't learn that song at home, only with Barb threatening them. No, she didn't threaten them. Or their parents threatened them, I don't know. There are 4 study groups in this church. Did you know that? 4 study groups? And 3 of those are biblically based. There are countless groups that do so much good in this church. Everything from the Women's Guild. What was that thing they had in the fellowship hall for 2 days this week? Oh, what a mess. I mean, what a wonderful project. Everything from the Women's Guild to the softball teams to people that make prayer shawls. This church is devoted to a high quality of Christian education. It's found in classrooms. It's found on Sunday morning. It's found on Sunday evening with the youth. And if you were here last Sunday, you witnessed one of the biggest and important aspects of this church's life, and that is the Stephen ministry. And why are we having a pasta dinner next Sunday afternoon down at the Catholic Church? Why are we doing that? Because we go and participate in work camps, and the Catholics go with us. That makes it even better. And we do the work camps to physically assist people who can't build a porch or who can't put a roof on their house. And speaking of finances, I just learned this the other day. This church takes 10% of everything that is put in the offering plate and banks it aside, and all of that 10% goes to outreach, mission activity. Everything that we do in addition, the giving tree at Christmas, food that is being collected in this community, and guess who is directing all of that community food being gathered by everybody in this community? It is Liz Suter of this church. Mercy Ship that went off to Costa Rica, the Red Cross, care teams. This is a church that prays. Check out the outstanding prayer chain on the internet of what the prayer chain does in this church. And how could you pass this church? I have passed this church. We moved out here in 2008, and we've gone to Streetsboro, and we've gone here, we've gone there, and every time I have passed this church, I have admired it. Proud of its legacy, it stands as a beacon in the heart of this community. And while I have been with you only 10 weeks, I have found a level of lay leadership that I have not found in many other churches. It is of supreme quality. And I can't say enough about the staff of this church. They are highly dedicated to the unique ministries that you have initiated. And they do everything within their capacity to live up to the hopes and dreams of this congregation. On Easter Sunday, back April 1st, I have said something in other churches that I didn't say to you all. I have said in other churches, why are you here? Are you here as a tourist? Or are you here as a pilgrim? And I didn't say that on Easter Sunday because I thought in my mind that sounded kind of snarky. It sounded kind of accusatory, and I didn't say it. And you're probably glad I didn't. But today I want to ask you, why are you here? Because we're now talking to this church. We're not talking about visitors that came in for a moment. We're talking about the family. Why are you here today? I pray to God that you're here as a community of pilgrims. Amen. Let us stand and sing together.